Welcome. The Pueblo Star Journal presents Soul Fresh, Soul Clean podcast. Soul Fresh, Soul Clean is a production of the Voices of Pueblo podcast. Episode 2, titled Food, Community, and Local Sustainability, was produced and narrated by Jocelyn Martinez and Gregory Howell.
Welcome to the Voices of Pueblo podcast. This is the second episode of Soul Fresh, Soul Clean. My name is Gregory Howell, and I'm here with
Jocelyn Martinez.
And we are really excited to record this second podcast. The first was a very long, over an hour, but we really wanted, with the inaugural podcast, to share where this whole food journey began, where we are now, and where we want to go. So there's a lot of moving pieces. And maybe just in terms of this introduction, I know you've gotten a lot of feedback. I've gotten a lot of feedback. What are some of the things that you have kind of recognized, or that have been reinforced, or things that people loved and they want more of? What are just some of the things? I'm just curious. I didn't think about this earlier, but I'm just thinking, now we can look back and people are like, wow, when's the next one?
I love all the feedback that I have gotten and I've received from the people who have listened to it. There's a lot of excitement about it. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are asking where they can subscribe, when the next one is coming out, that it's informative. I have also received a lot of feedback that they love our back and forth, that
rapport,
it's great energy, which I love. And I know some people started laughing. They're like, I laughed so hard at some of them. And, they really hear like our voices, our passion. And I think good tips and tricks. And sometimes you learn things that you don't know. And so I've really been getting a lot of feedback that people are excited for more.
That's great. And we definitely have a lot more. We've been very diligent in the way that we are planning the podcast, because the podcasts are really being used as kind of a conversational tool, kind of an early companion to the cookbook, which is where we're going to go later in the episode. We'll give everyone an update on the cookbook itself. That's kind of like the train, So there's different tracks, there's different stations, different destinations. But we know that ultimately our goal is by December 1st to be printing your cookbook, the first edition, under the Pueblo Star Journal publishing label. So we're really excited about that. And these podcasts are really helpful because not only is there that ongoing story, and everyone wants to hear the story behind the story, what happened behind the scenes, but our local food system is pretty amazing, very dynamic, seasonal, everything that you probably knew or didn't know, but now you need to know. It's really fascinating for us to be able to check in, because it is, we're still trying to really help build and reinforce this food culture. And just saying food culture, what is that,
Exactly.
Because we're just so lucky we've got all these great farmlands, but up until recently, much of what is grown here just bypassed Pueblo and just went up the Front Range or to other places.
It did. And there were so many people too that didn't even realize that there was so many farms and so much food available like in our backyard.
That's right. And that's a gift that Pueblo has, because when Pueblo really went through its industrial period in the late 1800s, early 1900s, a lot of other communities kind of let go of the agricultural sector and they let industry really kind of take, dominance. But Pueblo's really unique because we have these very just rich with history, culture, these multi-generational family farms. Many of them, everyone knows the top 10 names. You can mention them all. And during the season, it is the place to be. But I think it is because of those families, because many of them worked the land and they also worked in the mill. So it wasn't like they just did one thing. There was money to be had, and farming is so hard, and you sometimes have a bad year and other years you have a good year. So, and now that we have a better sense, I think, of the water situation, because we really don't have a water problem. We have more of a water management problem in Colorado. But it's the reason why Pueblo's here. is water. I mean, it literally, when you have two rivers, Fountain and the Arkansas, coming together and merging here. And it's interesting, the more I study about Pueblo, just that place, and people call it different things depending upon why they were arriving, whether they were homesteading or whether they were recreation, visitor, whatever it was.
Or they were here for the railroad.
Exactly. And railroads oftentimes would follow.
Yeah.
Oftentimes the shores, the banks of the rivers. And then rivers are also good, bad, and ugly because we've had our share of tragic floods. So that's just the other part of the Pueblo story, is this incredible resilience and, roll up your sleeves, DIY, can do, call the cousin kind of community where we really do rally. Because I'll be honest with you, when you look at the history, especially from the late 1800s to say the Great Flood was 1921. So that was really one of those milestones. But our town should not even be on the map, literally. I mean, it's extraordinary that, it's still here. And I think it is because of the unique kind of makeup of the international, ethnic, cultural. I mean, when you bring 40 different languages into the steel mill and you've got 26 daily foreign language newspapers, that's a lot of rich culture and deep, those are the safe places, for neighborhoods, for communities, for different groups. So it's really fun that we're kind of taking that same journey. Food, I mean, everyone, it's kind of, if there was anything that is universal in the world, it's food.
It's food and eating, and we all have to do it every single day.
No, it's exciting that we're able to, and especially now because there's a better understanding of what we actually have and what we don't have. And that's really important. I mean, if I see another farm, go to, like a track home development, I'm going to get there's so many other places to build.
I know.
Why do they have to take this 2 or 3% of Pueblo County that is so rich? I mean, it is almost, a gift from God in many respects, because
the sad part about that, and then we'll move on, but the sad part is that, they get these farmers and the people who own this land, they come to a point where they can't own it anymore.
Right.
And then, you have people from other states coming in and they're like, oh, well, I can build 5 houses here. And then they're getting rid of the water and they're getting rid of everything. And then all of a sudden there's 5 homes where there used to be a farm.
Right.
And so we're seeing that so much in the county,
and it's
it
not
happens
just Pueblo.
all the time.
It's
It isn't.
happening worldwide. I mean,
everywhere.
it's a problem.
It's a problem
Yeah.
everywhere. And it's like, when do we get back to respect for agriculture and the fact that we all need to eat and we need to take care of our soil, our water, our farms, our farmers, because that is literally what's feeding our nation.
And especially for us, we have certain different kind of cultural and there's all kinds of different tastes that we have here. A lot of it is linked to just where was your home country and what did you bring here? But that's a big deal. So it for us, it makes it very complex and interesting and dynamic, because if you're going to be a grower, if you're going to be a vendor, you're going to be growing things that all of these different, and even the farms themselves, many Italian, you get all the different types of different ethnic groups that grow certain types of foods that they know that their family and their families before and their families' families before. I think it's really cool that we're actually in a place that still has all of those resources, because Mother Nature can be really brutal, but we've got, pretty much everything you need to make a community healthy and vibrant. And I think that's what's exciting about all this different work. But today's theme is food, community, and sustainability. That sounds like a lot. There's a quiz tomorrow, 3 o'clock, so you got to take notes. So what we're going to be talking about, and we just kind of touched upon it, is this notion that food connects people and communities. And later in the episode, much of what we're going to be focusing on, Jocelyn, you're going to be talking about the cookbook update. You're also going to be giving us the very latest from the Sun, Soil, Water Summit. and a little bit about local food systems. And you already told me how many chickens you had to take down today, so we'll get to that in a minute here.
I still have a blister on my hand.
Oh my God. Well, let's actually first start with the Cookbook Project.
Okay.
And let's share just a little bit. We've been working on this a lot, really building the foundation. So why don't you just give us, how first, now you're kind of in it, and how does that feel? And then, we can kind of see where the future is, but there's still a lot to do.
There is. And it's, one chunk at a time. Like I had stated at the first podcast, I've had a dream of writing a book for 25 years. I always thought it was going to be a memoir or something like that. Mm-hmm. And again, I was in the food industry, but I didn't own my own business yet. I hadn't really went through my health journey that kind of created my business and what I do. But my love for food has always been there. And so I'm just so excited that I kind of get this opportunity to merge my stories and my passion and my business and my love for food all in one place, but also share those with others, and then they can replicate that. And so I'm always about being of service to others. And I feel like this is just the next level of being able to do that. Mm-hmm. And I'm just so excited about the whole opportunity. Well, it's interesting
you should say service, because the Pueblo Star Journal is unique when you start talking about local news organizations, local news rooms. We are literally a service and deliberative news publication. And that does change kind of the mission. It changes the vision. It changes the way you write, the way you investigate. But as a service, newsroom, we serve as a bridge. We're an advocate for the community. So one of the things that came out of our initial kind of mind mapping was that we need to provide all the resources. We're a service to the community. And that keeps expanding. We started out with, churches and government offices and school boards. And, now we're going to have the Pueblo food guide. So we're going to have a huge food guide. But they're all really good resources that we then update every year. So when we started to think about how can the Pueblo Star Journal really expand in those areas, the newspaper, the website, social media, and all of that is a really powerful part. It's like kind of the engine. But then we realized there's a lot of people like yourself, there's a lot of people that have stories. Mm-hmm. And it can be anything from like a comic book to, a history book to a photography book to a cartoon, a zine. It could be almost any format. But at the end of the day, it's all about that authentic and genuine story, the voice. And so we help people find that place. What kind of book is it going to be? What kind of podcast is it going to be? So for us, that's really, really fun. And then, of course, we wanted to go even further, and that's what Mojo is all about. So what I love is that all of these things that we're kind of bringing to the newsroom are going to enable us to do better reporting, reach further into the community. And I think we've just have figured out that we're going to go weekly. So 3 weeks, each week will be digital. And then at the end of the month, that's when we have the print edition. We will always have the print edition. That's been our promise from the outset, because the Pueblo Star Journal is over 100 years old, and our first super fans were all in their 80s and 90s waiting for this new paper to come back. So I think that's what's going to be really exciting is really looking at the service and then deliberative, that we actually, we do this with intent, because I think that's really important too.
It is important.
So, so let's talk just a little bit. I know we've been talking about schedules. And so talk about the podcast. So the podcast, we're going to have, it's going to be a monthly podcast. And although there may be some special, like on location or limited series, I know when you get out into the fields and you're just going to be in the wild, we're going to have to come up with some kind of special, we'll get you in the rows of the chilies or in the pumpkins or the hay. But I think there's a real opportunity there for us to take what we've done really well with Voices of Pueblo and all these different kind of special interest shows. But I think we're going to find the seasons, which is the big one here, that's going to provide a lot of unique opportunities for us. because I just want to get out with the roasters and hear and smell all that. And then, I mean, that's the fun thing. So yeah, tell them the monthly podcast is the first thing that we decided.
It is the first thing we decided. And I love that we get to do this. We'll be doing it, the third Friday of every month.
Yep.
They'll come out, unless we do like some specials, which I think there's great opportunity around farm season to get out and showcase some of the new products that are out. I mean, last year, Rocky Musso had some new squashes and things like that. And I'm all about trying new things and educating on how we can use them, why they're important. And so I'm excited about that. And I just want to, this is a great place where we can let you know what's happening with the podcast or with the cookbook. You can listen to the podcast, but then we're also going to be talking about food systems. We're going to be talking about wellness, why it's important to shop local, maybe some new things that are happening in the food systems and the food world, maybe some funny stories, or maybe there's, local businesses that are doing things that are really cool, because as a local business and an entrepreneur, I want to lift up other entrepreneurs and other local businesses and use their products and get their name out there. And I share their stuff because I think community is so important. And I think this podcast is a great place to do that, but also beyond. So then people, they know who I am, they know who the Pueblo Star Journal is, but then they might start looking at Pueblo a little bit differently.
Right. And you brought up something, because I just think it's a great idea, because I've done private excursions, just professionally around the world with one of my travel consulting firms. But we were talking about having a bus, a coach that goes out to the farms. And it's something that, of course, transportation is first and foremost There's not a lot of transportation out there. No. I mean, you really have to have either someone, your cousin, or a neighbor. Someone's got to drive you if you don't have a car. Or you could bike it, I guess. I did the bike the best summer, but you had to drive out to St. Joseph's, and then you did the ride. But I'm just thinking that might be, a really fascinating, maybe we do it one season, and we test it out and we see, maybe do a 15 passenger or 20 passenger, get people to sign up. I mean, minimal cost. We might even be able to get, what I'd like to with the Pueblo Star Journal is to get sponsorship for the vehicle, for say that, or they could do a series of those. But I do think if people if they didn't have to worry about transportation and they could go out, because then you have all the benefits. For example, for those that use SNAP, I mean, it's amazing how far
$60 of free produce a month that you can get.
That's crazy. Yeah. I mean, that is, such a beautiful thing when you think about how important it is to get really good, fresh, healthy foods. And then if you use that platform, you actually get that bonus. And that's and that's good too, because oftentimes there can be waste, in the farm. A lot of that stuff can just be, because it's not going to be there forever.
Yeah, and that's something that's been near and dear to my heart since I moved back from Denver. I moved back in 2008, and I always thought to myself that there's a huge disconnect from getting the people to the farm and the farm to the people. And how do we close that gap? Because when you look at it, it could be a 20-minute drive out to the county. Right. And there's really no buses that go out there. And so how can we be a resource? Because I know that's part of the struggle of getting people to our farms. And how do we stop that from being a struggle for our community? Right. And so I love the fact that we have resources for that. Definitely, it's try it out, beta program, see if we can get the initiative so people actually do it.
Right.
Because that's the other part.
And if you think about it, there are farmers markets, and farmer markets are designed. They're in locations where people can arrive, park, critical mass, you get everyone there, but not everything is there,
Exactly.
And farmers markets are different. So I think the argument that you could have, because some people, farmers markets are great. Don't get me wrong. I love it. I wish we had more.
Me too.
But when you're able to actually go out to the farm itself, so you're taking one step back to the origin source, and there's just so much more than just the food. You know where the food is coming from. You know the people that grew it. You knew where you drive by it. It becomes familiar. You become a part of it. So
exactly.
I knew when we started talking about transportation, I'm thinking, well, there are farmers markets, but one of the things we'll do is we'll talk about how this excursion, this run that we will do, will really be unique and special in the sense that it's about education, it's about introductions, it's about, just getting out and socializing with other people.
And having that experience.
Yes.
One of my favorite places is the farmer's market or the farms. I love to go out. I love farmers markets too. I go to them all the time. But it's all about experience. The farmers markets are about experience. Going out to the farm is a different kind of experience. That's right. And let's start them young, and so they know the difference between these experiences. But then also what we could do is we can, on the drive there and the drive back, kind of let them know like tips and tricks of what they can do with that food.
Right. No, without a doubt. Without a doubt. And I know the Pueblo Food Project, they have so many different initiatives where for those that don't have the know-how, and I love the cooking classes that we've both done as volunteers, the families come in, you get 10, 12 families, they get to, see how these are made, and then they get to take home all the ingredients and do it at home.
Exactly.
I mean, it's a lot of work, but it is such a rewarding, volunteer experience because I just love seeing families, first of all, coming in, and we've got some large families, some small families, single moms, single dads, it's the whole kit and caboodle. Some people don't speak a lot of English. Others speak, just their English. It is really representative of a lot of different people that are in the community.
It's our community. It's our culture, and it's bringing everyone together again around food.
Right.
And that's what this cookbook could do as well. It's bringing us around food and community and around the table.
Yeah, no, I think the one, there's the Bible, which of course, the Quran, there's all these religious, really important, books that have been around forever. But cookbooks are almost the same. I go into, I think one of the most fun things for me to do is when I go into someone's kitchen or into the Nook area and I see their cookbooks, man, it tells me so much about who these people really are. Now, some people have never even looked at them, but they look good in the kitchen.
But they have them.
There.
Yeah.
So, so let's, in some of these other things, so gathering recipes and stories. So when we first met, you already had a really good kind of, because you had said you've always wanted to write something of this sort. So that's one thing that that you're in the current process of doing. And we've been going through contracts, memorandums of understanding, all these things so that we really make sure that we have covered every single aspect, not only just of creating the book, but that's just one part of it.
Right.
Then how do we actually promote it? How do we actually share it? How do we do tastings? How do we do all of those things? So having a really good understanding, and we're going to be doing before the book is published, some tastings of the recipes.
I love it.
With the community. So that's going to be a fun community outreach for us. And organizing materials. I've been showing you all kinds of new digital platforms that are going to make us so much smarter and wiser. Maybe not, but organized at least.
On point.
Yeah.
On point.
Because if you think about it, a recipe is a really interesting, especially a recipe book, but just the notion. You've been providing recipes now since the Pueblo Star Journal started. And the current one, we tweaked the recipe a little bit. It kind of pops more.
Okay.
But boy, I love how you have the tips, and then you've got this photograph, and then you've got kind of how much time it takes for prep and how much time it takes to cook it. And then you've got, the name of the dish, and you've got all the ingredients, and then all the steps. And it's really easy to grasp. And when you get used to that format, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So I think for us, you've been envisioning this, but, you really don't know until you do it. You don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
So I'm excited.
Yeah,
I'm really,
I am
really
too.
excited.
I am too. And of course, all the recipes will be, they're like this month there was a vegan option. So,
you've been talking about, and we all kind of have been to restaurants or we've been to an event, and all of a sudden there are choices.
Yes.
Sometimes you have to do that in advance. For weddings, that's been something, that's been kind of, then some people, you don't have a choice. That's the other thing. You just get salad or whatever. They just.
Yeah, no, it's like, here you go. You can have this salad and that's it with some oil and vinegar. But I want that cookbook to also show that anyone can make these recipes. Anyone can eat them, no matter what. If you're celiac, if you're vegan, if you have allergies, how to stay like anti-inflammatory, just like a place where you feel like you can cook it even if you need special requirements.
Right. And you could cook it for yourself, or you could double or triple the recipe. I mean, these are all things we've talked about.
Yeah.
How do you make those seasonal nuances and those recipes really work in a way in which people are going to, because once someone feels like, oh my God, I'm never going to do that again. That was just too much work. And there are some recipes.
There are.
I've cooked some things that was just like, I'm sorry. I mean, this is just, nope, I'm going to go and I'm going to go get a pizza, or something.
Right.
So, but no, so that's really, really important that we create, and that they reflect, they're representative. They mirror kind of the land, they mirror the cultures, because that's the fun thing. I mean, my Christmas now is pizza and tamales.
There you go.
I mean, it's like, hello, Slovenia.
Clash of the cultures.
It is,
right?
but it's so
that's
right
Pueblo.
for here. Exactly.
But that is Pueblo.
Exactly.
And that's what I'm going to say is there's so many cultural foods that have become Pueblo traditions.
Yes.
And that people just don't know unless they know and they've experienced
Right.
it.
And I love it when we did an event for the Economic Development Council of Colorado, not this most recent one, but about 2.5 years before. And we did it at the convention center. We had about 350 people. And of course, I did something that I've always wanted to do. When people registered, these were 300 economic developers from all over the state. So I made them, when they registered, they had to tell us what the name of their high school was.
Okay.
Even if they didn't go to a Pueblo high school. So that way, everyone that was there, Pueblo or non-Pueblo, their high school name was on their name badge. And then we had all these different opportunities for them to try unique Pueblo cuisine. So we found one of the best Slovenian chefs in town, and he did everything. I mean, to the nth degree. It was just wild. Then we had Italian, and then we had Mexican. And it was more of the kind of the traditional family style.
Yes.
Italian, Mexican, and, the Slovenian food. I mean, people were just, they were like, what? And pierogies, that were just fresh and delicious, and all of that good stuff.
Oh, yeah.
That was so much fun because, you walk across the Union Street Bridge and you see those 4 flags. You see France, Spain, Mexico, Republic of Texas. We're borderlands. I mean, this was an international boundary. So that having been the foundation, now you've got a steel mill that is bringing in people from all over the world.
It was really great. So a couple years ago, we were the caterer for the Colorado Historic Preservation Council that came, and they went all over. They were bussed out to the county. Right. I know Jolene with Palmer. Yep. She did a special with that, like something out in the county with them at the farms, and we actually did one of their lunches, and their lunches was Slovenian.
Oh, Slovenian. That's
And so we did the kibasi.
I love
and
that.
then I actually had gotten a recipe for sour potatoes from an original recipe.
Right.
And so we did that as one of the sides, and it was just great because they got to actually experience that. And I mean, we got the meat from Frank's, and we went out and, did this.
And that's the fun thing too, because that's where most of these kind of micro neighborhoods, when you start talking about butchers, you start talking about certain types of, bread shops, pastry shops,
well, like Eilers.
Yes,
like we were right there.
That is such an amazing part of just the complexity. But I've never asked you this because we've never had the conversation. But when you look at the book, we've been kind of looking at it. We kind of know how many recipes. We know that it's going to be really rooted and grounded in seasons. But I'm just curious because, as we were saying earlier, there are some truly cultural, traditions in our food system here that wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the Slovenians that came, or the Greeks that came, or the Hungarians, the Czechoslovakians. I mean, we wouldn't have those additions to our palate, and that's from the farm to the store to the table, all of that. Have you thought about how many there might be a Slovenian, kind of feel or aesthetic, or it might be a Slovenian recipe. I don't know. We've never talked about that. Not that you have to have so many of each, but there are going to be some real winners right away. And I don't know.
Absolutely.
If I've never asked you before, what do you think about having a few that would represent, some of what you would find if you were to talk to people in town or go out to some of the neighborhood restaurants and learn about those cuisines?
There's definitely going to be some recipes from what I learned and have eaten here in Pueblo. The enchiladas, I always do like my green chili enchiladas.
So good.
I love my recipe. It's something I got from my grandmother. And
what do you call that recipe? Is it named after her?
No,
you just call it enchiladas.
Chili enchilada casserole.
So are we going to come? Are we going to come?
I'm not a roller.
Are we going to come up with names for these recipes?
Some of them.
I think we almost need to, because if we really want to honor someone.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I have recipes in my family that go back generations, and it's just when I hear my great grandmother's name with her persimmon cookies.
Okay.
Things that were really. I mean, there's only a handful that, of course, kind of stand above the rest, and that was what I always look forward to. I mean, they always had loaves of bread on the oven. They're always making bread, and beefsteak tomatoes and making our own mayo and having lettuce. I mean, that's all we did. We just made these absolutely delicious, sandwiches just with bare, beautiful, ingredients.
Well, when I went on this whole journey, my whole health journey, the whole thing was taking all the foods that we love and flipping them into a gluten-free, dairy-free version, so one, I could eat them and other people could eat them. So all the recipes that I grew up on, I've flipped them so that everyone can eat them. I figured out what works, what doesn't work. And so there's definitely going to be recipes of all cuisines. I lived in Germany when I was young. Like, I love German food. It's one of my favorite things. And so there's like a bunch of different recipes. Like, one of my chilies that I do, my husband calls it grandma's gangsta chili.
Well, that sounds
and
good
so that's
already.
definitely going to be in the recipe book. And just things like that. And I do have little funny names for some. And then others are just what I have learned in the industry.
Right.
And restaurants that I've worked for, and just foods that I just loved so much.
Right.
And some of them you can't even get anymore. Like, when I used to go to the Whiskey Ridge here in Pueblo, and I loved their, I think it was their like wine chicken, and it was so great. There's just so many, like Vita Bella had some great recipes, and I had to fight Marty DeJoy for a really long time for one of the recipes, and he finally gave it to me a little bit before
What
he had
was the
passed.
criteria? I mean, was it something you had to lock up or swallow after you made it and you had to memorize it?
Kind of, for a long time. I kept trying to remake this recipe of his, and I asked him for it numerous times, and he would not give it to me. And before he passed,
well, they're sacred. Recipes are sacred. I mean, because you really don't know the origin. I mean, many of these that have been passed down from generation to generation, that's where it gets to be really extraordinary when you think about, because I think every family has their traditions. What are the foods you eat at Easter? What are the foods you eat at Christmas? What are the foods you eat, during the 4th of July? I mean, there are certain events that just require that the family gather with others and you bring your food.
And then there's recipes that I've come up with on my own, just out of foods that I love.
Right.
And so it was really funny. I was speaking to one of my clients, and we were talking about the cookbook. And so in the month of March, I make a Reuben casserole. I came up with this recipe like 7 years ago when I first started my meal prep, because I love corned beef. It's one of like my favorite things. Corned beef and cabbage is one of my favorite things. And I can't eat it that often because it's actually something I'm allergic to.
I was going to say your system would probably attack it.
But once a year, I will eat a little bit of it. And so I created this recipe, and it's a Reuben casserole.
Right.
And I mean, when I have it in March, people are like, give me 5 of them. That's all I want. So I was talking to one of my clients, And I was like, yeah, I'll probably put the Reuben casserole in the recipe book. And she was like, absolutely not. She said, I'm telling you, girl, you should keep that one for yourself in your pocket, like forever.
Right,
she was like,
right.
because it's so good. And I was like, well, I kind of want to share it.
But that's the reason why you would want to share it.
No, she was like, that one is yours and just don't give it up. And then I thought to myself,
I mean, I understand that, but that's kind of mean. Good food, you gotta get that good food out on the table.
And I do only make
yeah.
it in March.
Right.
And so that's like one of them. And I'm still like playing with that one because I'm like, oh, like, do I let that one go?
So did you do anything unique with the recipe, or do you cook it in a way? Because, I mean, there are some really basic ways. I mean, you cook it forever, until it all just falls apart, which is fantastic. And then you've got the potatoes or the cabbage, depending upon how you do.
So the casserole is just, it's almost like it's like a casserole bake. And so what I do is
do you put noodles in it? But
No.
you put no. I was going to say, you could do.
It's almost like a bread base.
Okay.
And then it's layered with all of the yummy things.
God, it's like a frittata,
and
when
then
you get all
put
those.
another layer,
yes,
and
yes.
then you top it with the sauerkraut and all this stuff. So it's like eating a Reuben sandwich, but it's a ooey gooey casserole.
It's breadless. I like that.
Good.
You don't have any bread, And at the end of the day, that's really good comfort food.
It is.
I mean, it's not in your hand. You got to eat it with a fork or a spoon. But no, I mean, and that's special too, because it's once a year. It's for a special occasion. And, you've gone through your journey now with your health situation, and it was really your journey that enabled you to understand what you needed to do in the future in order to be healthy and to be happy, and then to be able to share that with others is really where we are right now. So I just love all of that. So it's going to be fun to see. And I would imagine our December 1st, I haven't done it yet. I have to reverse engineer the whole timeline with our deadlines, which I'll do by this weekend, so that we'll be able to look at it at least and say, this is when all of these things need to happen. Because when you start looking at a cookbook, it's recognizable. You right away know what you're dealing with. But then you start breaking it down, and the number of things that you have to do before you can even put it on the page, it really is collaborative. There's a lot of layers, and I love that part of it, because it does give you the opportunity then to make it so uniquely your own. And, with your storytelling, with your little side notes and your humor. And I've been telling Jocelyn that I've been working on. If you have noticed Jocelyn's logo, she has a carrot and a beet, and they're happy. They're just happy vegetables. There's one of each, and they're kind of to the lower right underneath her whole brand name. And I thought, they've just been silent for too long.
I know.
So I have taken it upon myself to create these little animated vignettes where the carrot and the beet actually have names, personalities, attitudes. They have things to do. So they're gonna be dancing around. So that's gonna be fun. That's gonna be fun.
I love it because I love fun, and so that's just
well. If
great.
it's not fun, why do it?
Exactly.
I mean, you just have to go to. Oh, I won't say that. It should be fun. I mean, it shouldn't be everything, but if it's not fun, then you're not enjoying yourself. And granted, there are certain things that we do, and we know there isn't going to be any fun involved, but it's just, that's the way it is. So if you have a choice, I would always mix in a little bit of fun. So I think that really takes us, one of the things we've been talking about is how all of these food traditions, they equal, this amazing community history. So you can look at it from an individual level, from a family level. You can look at it from a neighborhood level. You can look at it as kind of a cultural level, because it really extends, And what I love is, I mean, whenever you try a new food, if you really like it and you can get it, the ingredients, or make it yourself, you're probably going to kind of fold it into your routine. I mean, especially if you go out every now and then and you're choosing different styles of food. But that's a really powerful thing for us to be able to look at that, we have all of those opportunities, those options. This is such a unique place where a lot of different people came for a specific reason for generations. And, those families, those cultures, they leave an imprint. They leave a footprint.
Do.
And, food of all things is the one kind of, it's the one device, the one driver that enables people to kind of navigate that. So it's fun that if someone finds, say, a Slovenian dish that they really like, they can get it again. It's not like a one shot. If you go to Slovenia, clearly you're going to have things there that are extraordinary, and you can remember that. And that's the fun thing about the home country. Who brought the recipes? Who's got, because in Pueblo, when you talk about the chili, the smothered chili, is it going to be green? Is it going to be red? And whose is it? Is it your aunt, your cousin, your grandma, your grandpa, a neighbor? And no one, everyone's is the best. But it's really fun to just listen to, just how important those recipes are on an individual family level, especially if it's been passed down. You want to share
it's something
that.
You pass down.
Right.
It's something that you teach your kids to make, and it's remembering.
Yeah, exactly. And memory is something that is so important. It's like history. We live with that each and every day. How many times have you smelled something, you heard a song, and you're immediately taken to some place, some time, and hopefully it's a good time. It can be also a difficult time, but that's so powerful, that type of nutrition that you put in your body actually registers in ways that you really don't even know, when you start talking about wellness. I love that part of it.
Too.
I really do. So now I think food stories remind us how connected our community really is. And I think that's one thing that we're always going to try to, to accomplish in the work that we do, is that, the cookbook is just one way for us to be able to bring all of these disparate parts together, to not only create the dish, but then when you start talking about ingredients, it talks about all the suppliers, all the farms. Where do you get them? So there's going to be some fun things in the book.
Fun resources.
Yeah, in the book we're talking about having a little, it's like Jocelyn's Guide to Ingredients. Where do you get these things? Because if you don't know, you don't know. And you're, procuring them all the time.
And that's
so the good ones and the bad ones.
Oh, yeah. I've tried them all. And that's something that I currently do with my recipe for the Pueblo Star Journal. I've been saying what season it's in.
Right.
There's always tips in there. This is where you can find them
I love
now.
the tip. That's really cool, because sometimes you can find things. I remember when I found out about all these extravagant, like the strawberries from Madagascar. Well, they pretty much, you can get them almost year round now because you can grow them in the greenhouses. But I remember that when you couldn't get a certain thing, you had to order it, from, get it on a jet, and the jet flies it in. With Amazon and, we have just about every way possible. But, it's so nice when you really realize, where all these things are. And we've got so many of them.
So many
right
resources.
Here.
Yeah.
So our main topic today with this episode of Soul Fresh, Soul Clean, I'm here with Jocelyn Martinez, and my name is Gregory Howell. I'm one of the co-founders for the Pueblo Star Journal. And this podcast, this is our second episode. And if you've just joined us, we're really following this journey that Jocelyn is taking, and she's always wanted to have a cookbook in some shape or form. Well, we're making that happen because the Pueblo Star Journal, now in our 5th year, we have actually started our own publishing division. So this will be available to the community. So if you have a story, if you want to do a book or a magazine, or it could be almost anything that can carry a story forward. But this is really what we're going to be doing. And the podcast is kind of like the train that's going to take us all the way to December 1st when the book actually comes out. So, not only are we talking about your cookbook, but, just how the Pueblo community actually makes it possible. When you talk about the cultures, you talk about the neighborhoods, you talk about the farms, you talk about stores, ranches. I mean, all of that is part of the greater system.
Yes.
And this week, we're so excited. I know you're busy as heck, but we're going to talk about food and community engagement. And the first part, we're going to talk about the Sun, Water, Soil Summit. So why don't you, Jocelyn, I know you're out in the thick of it, but why don't you give our listeners an idea of what this particular summit is?
I love it. I actually think it's the Sun, Soil, Water Summit.
Yeah, I always get them mixed out of order because I think they changed it after the first year.
I think so too, but so this is the 5th year that they have
The Star Journal is a 5th year too. Oh my gosh.
That amazing?
Yeah, that's amazing.
So this is the 5th year of the Sun, Soil, Water Summit, and it is one of the biggest agricultural summits here in Pueblo, and it is all about local food systems, knowledge. It's kind of like come for the food, stay for community.
Right, exactly.
I have been blessed that I have been I've been the caterer for the Pueblo Food Project and the Sun, Water, Soil Summit. And I did it. You did it too. Sun, Soil, Water Summit for the past 4 years. This year, though, we're doing something really cool.
I'm excited. Tell them what we're doing, what's happening new and different this year.
Yeah, so I'm also on the board. So I'm glad that I get to talk about this, but it is going to be a Made in Pueblo event. So there's about 15 vendors.
It's called Made in Pueblo.
It's called Made in Pueblo, which we love. And it's because these are local entrepreneurs, local business owners. We at SoulSmile Health and Wellness will be one of the vendors. And so Friday night is the gala, and that's where we give the awards and recognition for all these amazing people in our community. And we also will have food. So this year you'll be able to go to the 15 vendors, and they have made something that is Pueblo, like green chili or Pueblo-based recipe, and then something that showcases their business, which is so great. And we have so many different vendors, and most of them have been part of the Pueblo Food Project's entrepreneurship cohorts. And so that's really great as well. But then it's just going to showcase, different businesses in Pueblo, and then maybe people can try foods from businesses that they didn't know were there.
And so, it's fun too. I mean, I love it when you go on this, it's like a scavenger, and it's like you get to journey through all of these different, businesses and organizations and people who have really put their heart and soul into this, not only just for the event, but it is their brand, it is their product, it is what they want to share with us. So that's fun to go around and taste and learn what's, what does Made in Pueblo mean? That's what I hope people walk away with.
And sometimes it's like, it's just the Pueblo green chili. And we've talked about this, but it's also the people who are making the food in Pueblo. And so this is a great time to talk to these owners and speak to them and maybe hear their stories that maybe you wouldn't otherwise if you were just in their restaurant or in their business.
And some people aren't even from here. Again, we get a lot of different people that are attracted to Pueblo for a lot of different reasons.
There's a lot of people who come from all over.
One of those places that, they want to volunteer. So it's really fun when you finally do get to have a moment, the food you're eating, you go, oh my God, this is so good. And then they tell you, that their 7-year-old son was in charge of the masa, for the tortillas or something like that. I mean, it's really fun then because then it's more than just the food. It's like, this is really not just a family, but this is a community endeavor. I love that part.
It is community, and it's just going to be such a fun event. There's going to be a silent auction. And then, of course, you have the Summit Conference, which is Saturday.
Right.
And that's all day. And so that's where you can go learn and hear people speak about, different
That's
things.
where all the thought leadership is. I mean, the Pueblo Star Journal is an official sponsor for this year's summit. And this was the first year that we even had the capacity to do that. But we've partnered with the Pueblo Food Project, with Megan Cover and her team, because she has been publishing in the Star Journal for the last several months, an article and then something about the summit. So it's been really helpful, I think, for everyone, because once you see that consistency, that frequency, and good information, and repeating it every now and then, because you never know who's picking up which ones. But it's been really, really helpful. And I think because there's some new things like the opening night, this will be a really good way for I mean, hopefully people have already kind of, they've already kind of tried to process how, if they've never been or if they've been before, how is it different? But I know Megan was their whole team were sending out things in advance, how to get ready. Here are some tips because they understand best, how things have shifted, where things are. And so if you're going to create resources or guides or give people tips and information, that's really helpful because the last thing you want is someone who comes there and they just don't know what's going on. Now that may be their problem.
No, it's so well structured and it's just such a great event. And like I said, this year, the theme is local solutions and food economics. And so it's really just talking about community possibilities, like challenges we may face. Like this year, we kind of have a hot early spring. But then the good thing, too, is Saturday night, there's the Maker's Mark.
Right. And I was just looking here, too. You say this year's theme is local solutions and food economics.
Yeah.
So that can be a lot. I mean, have you kind of gotten a sense of how that is going to unfold, that theme? Did you have to think about that at all in terms of what you were doing?
For me?
Or were you pretty much you were just arguing with the food and the chickens,
For me, my big thing and my big focus as the caterer for any of my events in Pueblo, but mainly, for this summit, and I do it with Palmer as well, is use as much local as possible.
Right.
And that is buying, the bread from Zolzman's. It's, going out to the farms, even if there's only a few of them, getting the beans where I can, like keeping that money locally, but also showing, yes, it isn't farm season, but we still have farms open. And there are Pueblo companies that are making barbecue sauces. There's Pueblo companies that are making jams and all these things. And so, like I said, I just broke down 100 pounds of whole wogs today for the summit, and we make everything from scratch. We made our croutons. It's not farm season right now here, but in Colorado, we still have access to great produce.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're lucky.
I brought, produce down from Denver's Fresh Point where it's growing there. And then it's still the best stuff that we can get. We got food and ordered stuff from, Valley Roots, which is local. We made sure that we're using Colorado quinoa, and we're using as much local as humanly possible because that is what I stand for. And I feel like we need to keep that in our community, in our state, and really bring that money back.
And I think that really is kind of what the anchor of the Pueblo Food Project when they started to really look at what are we going to do? If things don't exist, how do we create them? And then when we create them, how do we train leaders to continue? The thing that I loved that they did was they brought on the youth council.
Yes.
And what I love is they didn't tell the youth council what to do. They gave them a budget and said, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
That is so huge. Now it's hard. It's so important because then there's ownership. And as far as I'm concerned, we're doing it with the Pueblo Star-Journal. We need those younger voices in the conversation. They're marginalized now. They may not feel like their ideas or their comments or their suggestions are important, but they are. And even if you don't have something readily right now to offer, volunteer, participate, get involved, because along the way, you're probably going to meet someone or a group of people. You're going to have an experience with a certain fruit or vegetable, and it's going to change your life.
Exactly.
And you will then you'll start building that vocabulary, that vernacular that enables you to really share the Pueblo story, because it is so much about what we grow, in the earth here.
Yeah.
Locally.
And that's what's kind of cool about the Makers Market and the happy hour is they're all local entrepreneurs as well, trying to get their products out there.
Right.
And that's where you can purchase them, you can sample them, you can try them.
That's so fun.
And some of these are young entrepreneurs.
Right. Yeah.
And
that's what I've noticed. Like Zolzman, look at Zolzman. They were part of the recent food. They were in that incubator program, that entrepreneur program. And then someone went over, and then all of a sudden there are these young people at the front counter, and Megan actually did a story on that, and we took pictures. But we have a lot in Pueblo, from from Gagliano's to, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. All of these different.
And we're getting stuff from Gags. And
exactly. And so Zollman's, these have been around for like 100 years. Yeah. And that's like several generations. And yes, there are going to be times when the family just doesn't have the capacity. There might not be anyone left, or, it may not be something that they can even handle. But when you get some of these younger people to come into the community, come into the business, they understand the opportunity, they understand the investment.
They have passion for it.
Exactly.
And that's how
and they're buying a brand that's been around,
right,
that's established, and that's one of the beautiful things. I mean, I can just share an example in Japan. I work with like 16th, 17th generation potters in Japan, and many of them are living national treasures. And I remember asking, and it was pretty consistent, and you don't really become really well-known and famous until you're much older in your life. So you have to kind of work your way up. But I asked them, and they said, the one thing that is the hardest thing to do is, on one hand, you have to honor all 17 generations that came before, but you are obligated to tweak it just enough so it is your own. So think about that. I mean, this is where we are in food, and these really rich and deep customs that we have. These younger people come into these businesses, and if they get it, if they understand it, if they're there for the right reason, and they've got the right business plan and all of that, I mean, they can just create a whole new opportunity for something that has been so well established, because everything needs a fresh look, a fresh, kind of shake up, shall we say. I love that, because that's happening more and more in Pueblo. And I hope that continues, because, granted, some places aren't going to be around forever, but there are a lot of businesses, not even just food, but in hospitality in particular around the world. I mean, the oldest hotel is in Japan. It's been around for over 1,000 years, and it's just been passed down. That's kind of hard to believe, but it's really exciting when there's just something that is so quintessential about that particular neighborhood or the people that live there. And yes, they may not, but that feeling of community, that feeling of neighborhood is rooted in the bar, the restaurant, the dairy, all of the other little stores in the area. So I love that when it really is a reflection of the people.
Well, the way we keep memories and keep these things alive are through stories and food.
Yep.
And that's why it's important.
It's really important. And Pueblo has so many stories, and every Puebloan loves to share a story, even if they just make it up. But another part of this, so we've got this summit, which is fantastic. And you can go to the PuebloFoodProject.org, and they've got all the information. And I think the tickets for the first, are there still tickets available for?
I do believe there's still
it's
tickets
$100, right, per person. But that includes everything for Friday. But you can go online and you can secure those tickets. We'll be there because the Pueblo Star-Journal is a sponsor, but we're bringing our podcast studio and we're going to have a little lounge. So, if you do come to the summit, we're going to probably grab you with a hook and have you give us, what your thoughts are, what you've learned and what you would recommend others to do either this year if they can still come, or to recommend for next year. But the other thing that we wanted to cover a little bit is this notion of local food systems. So this notion of procuring local goods, supporting farmers and producers, economic impact. And we kind of have touched upon these because it is part of the greater ecosystem. But some things to think about, and I'd love for you to maybe elaborate, is, local spending strengthens the community. That's one that's just so true, so universal, so steadfast. Shorter food supply chains. That's just, if you just understand supply chains, the shorter they are, the better it's going to be for you, both time and then quality, all of that. And then this notion of supporting small producers.
Yes.
Because we've gotten kind of used to, or at least it's too convenient just to get on the internet, and whether it's Amazon or any other provider that can pretty much deliver to you within like 20 minutes, which I think is ridiculous. And now you can find lockers everywhere.
Oh, I know.
I mean, it's like 7-Eleven, banks, schools. There's a Amazon locker. I mean, it's crazy.
The first time I seen one, I was like, what is that?
What's a lot? Well, even the post office now has locker systems for certain neighborhoods where they may not be around. So do you want to put it in their locker? Well, I don't know. I had my time with lockers in high school. I don't need to go back there again. But what happens when communities invest in local food? And I know this is something you're very passionate about, but you've got some data too.
So passionate about this, and it's, for me, I believe that you should support your community, and that's like near and dear to me, and to support people who are out there putting their blood, sweat, and tears into products that they love, because most of them are using Pueblo products as well. They're using Pueblo produce, they're using Pueblo systems to make these products. And I think it's important to not, one, invest into them and their business, because if you're an entrepreneur, you should invest in other businesses and support people. And I think there's become this thing of like, oh, I don't want to support them because they do this. And it's like, no, let's support the people who are doing things in our community. But also is like knowing the money that you actually get to keep in your community.
Yes.
Like when you shop local, you're looking at 48% to at least 65%, 65 cents to the dollar that stays in the local community.
And that's huge.
And that's for local. But then you go to big box chains.
Right.
And those stores, they're still leaving money in the community, but it's more like 38%.
I was going to say, you're getting closer to 25%.
Right.
Yeah,
and then you go to the Amazons and you're looking at 1 to 3 cents comes into the community, right? And yes, convenience is great. And I can say, I use Cisco Foods. I can say, oh, I can just get it all on my truck.
Right.
But I don't. Instead, I take hours of time of saying, where can I get these when I'm making this recipe? Where can I go? Who has them? Who can I support? And I go to those places. So it takes more time for me to do that, but it's so important to do that.
It is. It's so important. I mean, I grew up in Southern California, and Trader Joe's is just, it's an institution. It's something
I love
we grew
Trader
up.
Joe's.
So you know what I did when I knew that Trader Joe's wasn't here, and this was before we had the stores opened, in Denver and Colorado Springs, I got a list together of all of my 10 favorite Trader Joe's foods. And I went around Pueblo and I found them all.
Right.
They were all at different places. They were a little bit different here or there, but I could find them. Yeah. Then I started sharing it with people who love, the notion of Trader Joe's. And they thought, oh my God, because you have to. I didn't even know I could get that here. You have to think about it in a different way. Yeah. So it was really fun for me because I probably only did it a few times because then the stores opened up. But you can find, we do get used to certain types of stores. But man, if you can find local farms, suppliers, stores, not only are you going to get better quality because you've reduced that supply chain to practically zero, because in many cases the farm is next to the to the market, if you go out during the season. There's so much just proximity to every little part of it. And when you're talking about food, it's something that perishes very quickly.
Yes.
If it's and you don't always, if it isn't grown right or if it was picked wrong, you may not always have optimal, but if you're talking about a long fruit, they're getting those things picked tomatoes when they're green, and then they gas them and then they're red by the time they get to the store, but they're like plastic, it's so different from getting just something here, whether it's a cherry tomato or, an heirloom or just a regular beefsteak tomato. You can tell the difference immediately. It's like flavor. It's not even.
There's a different flavor from going to Sam's and getting a carrot and getting it grown out at the farms. You could taste the difference.
And then you get them and you get purple and green. I mean, you get all those different colors of carrots, and they're so good.
Yeah. Which, I mean, carrots. Color is minerals.
Yeah, it is. So. Well, no, we talked about that because that's one of the things that we talked about with the cookbook is how does color become a part of the experience when you go, because, I mean, they've done lots of experiments, food, it needs to look appetizing, and we have certain kind of expectations when it comes to food.
Exactly.
And, you kind of need to know what you're eating.
My expectations for food is it should taste good.
Yeah.
And it should be like, I should have an experience.
Yeah.
But it should also be like healthy for me.
And you remember, first of all, you will remember because it's giving you nutrition and everything. But, I love it when, there's something about that moment. You have that dish and it's just like, oh my God. Yeah, no wonder these people are so happy.
Well, there's a problem and there's a disconnect with healthy food and food that tastes good.
Yeah.
And that is where the fail happens, because if it doesn't taste good, you're not going to do it forever. You're not going to have that longevity.
That's right. And that's true of a lot of things. When you start talking about making changes in your life, as soon as it becomes really difficult, really complicated,
mundane,
you're probably not. I mean, look at all the order in food services that we have, and some are good, some are just clearly, they're just trying to make money. Yeah. Plus the way that they're shipped in the containers and everything. But it just goes to show you our lives have become so kind of quick and fast and busy that we don't even have time, especially if you have a multiple income household and everyone's out and about, who's shopping, who's prepping, who's cooking. And sometimes it's just like, well, I just want to order in, Well,
because it's losing experience is what it is. And I have so many things. I can actually say 100% I have never Uber eaten in my life.
I haven't either. I know my brother has. I mean, my brother has.
I own a meal prep company, which is funny, but I have never Uber Eats ever. I don't even have an Uber Eats in my app.
I tried a lot of the other services where you order the meals so many per week and everything. I've done that for me. I've done it for my dogs. There's all these different types of foods.
Your Chewies.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I end up, because I love cooking myself. And I was very lucky that my mom, my grandmothers, my great-grandmothers, they all were just extraordinary, individuals in the kitchen. And my father was the same way. And he was more barbecue outdoors. But all of the stuff that he did, just really, really solid, when we start talking about barbecue, because that's a whole other, we lived in California at the time, so it was outdoors. So, you could eat outdoors every single day, and that's where that barbecue was.
Yeah. And not to say there's anything wrong with Uber Eats. I just think it's funny that I can say I have literally never done that.
No, and I wonder if you did do it, what you would think,
Right. Well, I'd probably think, wow, I just paid $25 for a Starbucks.
I really don't like the way that driver looks, because there can be some really interesting drivers.
Yeah, but no, it's I'm just a firm believer of supporting our community and Colorado and all of the great things that we can get. And that goes for anywhere I go. As a retreat chef, I go to local stores, whichever state I'm in, whichever city I'm in. I do the research to find out what stores there are that are not big box stores and just try to really put the money back into the community in which I'm in.
Right, exactly. Well, and we're all beneficiaries when that happens. And, first of all, the restaurant business is the hardest business to begin with. Just to even consider it is painful. So it does require that there is something special about what you're able to do as an entrepreneur, as a restaurateur, as a chef. But then also, people do need to support, so there's going to be a cost factor. There's going to be a time factor, transportation. There's going to be all these different parts of that decision-making process. And the easier that we can make that so that people know, and sometimes it really is not just about the food, but it's about the experience.
Go and talk to people.
People will pay for an experience, get them to pay for a subscription or for something that's, but instead of paying $20, they'll pay $100, but they will pay $20.
Yeah.
They'll all pay for a tattoo. That's another thing. There's just such a craft and art with that, depending upon how many you need to hang on your body, there are a lot of different ways. I'm covered in them. There's a lot of different ways to kind of curate that part of, but it's all reflective of community, and they're mostly all small businesses. And there's nothing more pleasurable than being able to, because if it's good and if it's fresh and usually you get value added. It could be extra product or the next time. Yeah. I mean, you get suggestions because a lot of these places know everyone else.
Well, and I've had, I have great relationships with farmers and they're, hey, like, let's collaborate. Hey, Jocelyn, I have this big event. Someone will donate. And so it's all about relationship.
Yes.
Relationship.
It has to start there. Yeah, I think so.
You build that relationship by supporting each other.
Yeah.
That's where it comes from.
Yeah, and that is small towns. It can be sometimes a little bit dicey because there can be a lot of pride and a lot of people in their own kind of unique silos, and a lot of people don't like to get down out of their silos, and they kind of keep it unique to themselves and their clan. But ultimately, I think if people really, in their heart of hearts, and if they have a passion for what they're doing, they're going to either intentionally or unintentionally find that the business plan, their mix, all of that stuff is probably going to work really well, and they're going to enjoy success because we have so many in town that have been around for generations.
Exactly.
But we talked a little bit about, community health. Healthy food equals healthy communities. Local agriculture supports sustainability. Food brings people together socially. We've probably said that different ways. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that food does really shape the community's well-being, especially when we take the time to recognize and honor that which we have.
Exactly.
Because sometimes when convenience gets in the way, and that's true too of the different types of food establishments that come into town. Because, you see the whole thing, from fresh, just do it yourself. And then you've got, fast food. You've got, more contemporary, traditional. You've got Grandma and Aunt Tilly, in the back, not only gardening, but they're cooking and doing the dishes and cleaning the tables. I mean, they do it all.
They do.
But
the Nonas.
The Nonas, yes. So this next part is really SoulSmile and Colorado Proud. So you say that SoulSmile is a Colorado Proud registered business. What do you mean by that?
So being Colorado Proud, you get the Colorado Proud stamp. Colorado Proud is a company in Colorado or business in Colorado that supports Colorado produce, Colorado companies, Colorado agriculture.
Is it agriculture pretty much?
It's like around food.
Oh, around food. Okay. Okay.
So, but they have a bunch of different things. Like sometimes Colorado Proud, and I don't want to say any of this wrong, but say there's a print shop or something. Maybe they're using like a local, it was made in Colorado.
I see. Yeah.
It's like a Colorado made product.
That's
so you'll
good.
see that.
Well, we always try to do that. We start with the states. First the city, then the state. And then if we have to go out of state, that's because we couldn't get it here.
Right.
And then we'll go even further if we have to. We really need it.
So you can find that stamp all over foods, all over. So
I've seen it before.
In the store, you can see it all over. So we are a Colorado Proud business.
And I love this statistic.
I know.
This is pretty amazing.
So this just came out.
Yeah.
And so it is known that 68% of Colorado Proud companies are women entrepreneurs.
That's amazing.
That is huge.
It kind of doesn't surprise me, but until you hear it, you really don't know that that's really what's happening.
And it was really great. So 2 years ago, Colorado Proud came to our food truck, and they came and did an article about us and a video, and we were part of their series where it was showing Colorado Proud companies.
I like that.
And one of them was like women. Some of them were, men, some of them were Latina women and different things. And so it was really great to be a part of that. And so you could find that online as well.
It's so nice when you can identify yourself as you really are,
right?
And that then the audiences, and then this company, the certification program, they actually honor you. They see you, which is so important.
And
so important.
It's just for me, like to the core of me. I shop this way. I believe this way. My company is ran this way about supporting Colorado, supporting your local environment. And I don't take that lightly. Like, I'm not one of those people who's like, oh, yeah, I'm going to say it's this and it's not. Like, it literally would make me sick if I did that. And so I honor all of that because it's really important to me to support our agriculture and support our systems and support the state and the city in which you live in.
Right.
And I just want to showcase that as much as I humanly possibly can.
And you need it so much in your business. I mean, you really need to know and you want to.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just more convenient. It's a better proposition.
It saves the bottom line. Like if you shop locally.
Plus, I mean, it just is such a good feeling when you know that you're building community. You know each other by first name. You know what their kids are doing, in the summertime. I mean, all of those things, you become part of just more than that business, that entrepreneurial experience, but you become part of that really vibrant, there's a lot of energy. There's a lot of synergy. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff going on. Then, of course, like now with things with pricing and all of these things going up. So it's really nice to know other people, to have other resources, to lean on someone else's shoulder when you find that you might be struggling with some of these new developments in both our local, say our regional, state, and then federal or even international, because tariffs have impacted a lot of it. And agriculture got hit really, really,
it really did.
bad, and then another bailout. So at the end of the day, it just really does make so much sense on so many different levels to really support those that are in your community and that provide, everything that you need. And as a chef, you're always looking for.
I'm always trying to find new things.
Well, you were just saying that Rocky said he had a new squash, and you're like, well, what does it taste like? How do you cook it? What do you do with it?
And then I was like, well, I need like 100 pounds of them. I needed like 100 pounds, and I learned
I have two. This is the
I was
first.
Like, well, that's a lie. You can't eat the.
But you tried it. You actually purchased it, right? You did it.
I did. Yeah, we did it for Palmer. We actually brought in a new squash.
Right.
I asked.
How do you feel about that? You got all these people, and you got a new squash on the table.
I'm a risk taker.
There you go.
So I was like, I can cook
Someone's gonna like the squash,
and they loved it. And I learned that.
Well, I ate it. It was great. I remember.
Hey, you can't eat the skin because it will break your tooth. But the greatest part about it
is why the inside is so good.
The inside is good. Yeah. But the greatest part is people were coming up and asking what kind of squash it was, and they actually had it on the tables as a decoration.
Oh, so it was also a decoration.
So they thought it was just a decoration, and we're like, no, you can eat it. And then we
just don't eat it with your teeth.
Where to find it.
That's fantastic. See, that's
education.
And that's huge too, because oftentimes you'll hear about these things, and then you're like, well, but no one carries it. How do I get it?
No, I was like, go there,
awesome.
buy them all out. So I'm excited to see like what we have this year that may be new.
That is so fantastic. So, all of this, and we've been talking about this throughout the episode, is this notion of building partnerships with farmers and local makers. I mean, the thing that I have come to enjoy is that Pueblo really is a maker town.
It is.
It's a tinker town. It's a DIY, roll up your sleeves, can-do place where if something breaks, usually you will call either your Pueblo cousin or your real cousin. And they'll be the first ones to arrive, assess the situation. And then the topic will be, well, do you know anything about what's broken?
Yeah.
And then, of course, everyone's going to say, yes, I do. But in fact, they might not. So there's that tug of war a little bit. But at the end of the day, it's just such a beautiful and natural way to know where to go for support and who's going to be there for you if your car breaks down or if the lawnmower doesn't work or if an appliance is broken.
Well,
I love that part of it.
In the food industry here in Pueblo, I just think it's so beautiful. I've been able to watch as people have watched me too kind of break the norms. And there's something like nitty gritty about us Puebloans. We don't like to hear no. Like,
no, I mean, it is very, I mean, again, it gets back to like, we shouldn't even be on the map here.
Right.
So resiliency
it's huge.
is huge. I mean,
and there's so many people there's so many people. Let's just take Sacred Bean for an example, right? Mm-hmm. They started this out of a
their
Volkswagen
VW bus. It was so fantastic.
And people would line up, in a parking lot for coffee.
Right.
And then they did that for years. They figured it out. They figured out these weird things. They figured out logistics.
A lot. She approached many of her recipes.
Yes.
Because she does amazing baked goods. Again, in the same way that you wanted to make sure that I want to do these, but I'm going to do them in this fashion.
Exactly.
And then everyone can eat
Staying kind of true to who you are and your passion without the outside noise of telling you what you should be.
You really shouldn't do that because you're going to need...
You should be.
Yeah, exactly.
You should be doing this. Well, why?
Exactly.
And so there's
I'm
all
not gonna
these
do that.
great like places and restaurants and entrepreneurs in the food industry in Pueblo that really like nitty gritty. Like I have this idea and I'm going to make it work.
Right.
And that's what's so cool. It's like with me and mine. I mean, I had to learn all kinds of stuff.
So have you been, since we're talking about Sacred Bean, across the street, Sacred, the cutting board.
The cutting board.
They just reopened. They left Fuel and Iron in there. Have you eaten there yet?
Oh, yeah.
I've seen pictures at the new location.
They're vegan.
I love their
really
food
good.
when it was at Fuel and those bowls that they have.
I just love them because for me, it's really hard for me to eat out because I'm gluten-free, I'm dairy-free. Now I'm vegetarian. Like, why don't we just keep piling it on and we'll just see who can feed me, right?
There you go.
And so it's very minimal.
I told you, you need to carry these recipe cards around so you can tell these chefs, this is what I need to eat next time. So keep this in your phone. Yeah.
There's so much that I can eat because they're using, corn starches and stuff like that.
And they're beautiful, too. Yeah. I love their presentations.
So, there's all that stuff. You know, there's all these people. And what's great is these entrepreneurs are saying, hey, I want to make it where everyone in the community can come here and eat. And that's what's great. Like La Freshetta, brought in a really awesome new gluten-free pasta that was so good I had to ask if it was gluten-free.
Right.
And then he comes up to me and says, hey, Jocelyn, what do you think about it? Because I don't know the gluten-free. And I said, hey, it is a honor.
Right.
And like such a good representation if someone who is gluten-free has to ask you if it is.
Right.
And so it's just, that people in our community are noticing that there's a need for these things.
Right.
And they're making it where people could go to their restaurants, they could go to their places of establishment and they can get foods that they can eat.
Right. And that just is, it's just, and I was just talking about the Japanese and the Korean grocery store that they've opened up. They have their original one in Colorado Springs, and now they have one in Pueblo over on Highway 50. And I went over finally for the first time. I usually wait. I was so sad when the Asian market closed on the east side over on 8th Street because there's certain things, and I've lived overseas and with Japanese food, there's just certain things that really make me happy.
Yeah.
And you just get used to that. And that's just my appreciation for the culture and what it gave to me. And so I'll tell you, I went over there. And
I told you, remember?
It wasn't expensive. I came out of there with all of these just wonderful things that, I would have to go to Denver for. I probably couldn't get many of them in Springs except at their store. But also they have fresh, they have a produce section in there. And oftentimes the things that are really hard to get, you can pretty much get shiitake mushrooms anywhere. But man, they had a variety of shiitake mushrooms in there, which is really, if you're looking for a good mushroom that just literally stands, tall amongst all of the mushrooms. It's just an essential part.
And that's one of the best things because we have had mushroom farmers and people who sold mushrooms and at the farmers market and they were here for a little bit and then they disappeared.
Yeah.
And so it's great that now we have this other resource to get those.
That's right. And they've been proven this, in Colorado Springs. And so when I walked in the store, it's the cleanest store I've ever seen. It's so shiny and bright. And they have a ramen bar.
I know.
That is so cool. The whole wall is all these different ramen. And then you bring them down. They have the hot pots and everything. And they have sides and toppings sometimes. That was really cool. Yeah. It was just something that you wouldn't normally find, and I love ramen. Ramen is really, really great. But so we've talked about why these local partnerships matter, that this whole initiative, it really does strengthen the regional agriculture sector. And then connecting consumers with producers. And you can do that literally, you can do it figuratively, but that notion of connecting, and you know when you're connected, you know when you're in the right place, you know when there's nothing more beautiful than when you get exactly what you were hoping for and more sometimes because you didn't expect. Because sometimes you go out to these farms and they've got popcorn, they've got pastas, they've got, everything else that goes really well with all the fresh produce.
Exactly.
I love that part of it. And I think everything that we're doing, at least in terms of how we're trying to frame the development of the cookbook and then with the podcast, is all reinforcing this that we have here today and then making it easier to access, easier to understand, easier to afford. There's all those different, I want to do something, and I think I might do it this year with La Resolana Farms, the peony garden. They won't be open to the public, but when they bloom, I would love to set up, because it's always around Memorial Day, is to set up like a Parisian style floral curbside floral display. And you can order them ahead of time, or you can come down just because Puebloans love their drive-thrus.
Oh, I love it.
So we could just drive through, or you could park and come in and put together your own bouquet, because they are the Pueblo Memorial bouquets. They were for Memorial Day, and then you would take them out to the cemeteries and put them on the graves. So there's a whole story, and I can tell you, I've been working with Judy Trujillo, and she gave me all the documents of how the peonies got to Pueblo.
Oh, that's cool.
So I'm going to help her write the book, the story about it, because it's an extraordinary thing. And I grew up in Japan, so when I first saw those peonies, it was like, this is crazy. These peonies, there's over 1 million out there with the Japanese irises, but they're like the size of a child's head. They're massive. And they are so unique to Pueblo that you can't really find them anywhere else. And even Judy will tell you, they used to sell the little seedlings. So you could buy them and then plant them at your home. So when Judy drives around town, she'll go, oh, those were ours. Those were ours. Those were ours.
Well, she needs to do that again.
No, I know. It's so beautiful. But I think here our very last part of the podcast is really, now that we're going to be getting into a rhythm, we're going to get into a cadence, that we really want to encourage individuals to subscribe to the monthly podcast. And you can get our podcast, Voices of Pueblo, and this particular show for Soul Fresh, Soul Clean. I have to say that like 100 times every day so I get it right. But you can get them on Spotify, on Apple, on YouTube. Wherever you get your podcast, you will find it. So just search for, and it's really fun to look at too, because we used your colors, and there's the little carrot and the beet on that logo. But it's purple. It's a really beautiful kind of violet purple. And you'll see that the name, the Soul Fresh, Soul Clean, is actually kind of an arc. And then you'll find the magical, it's like the magic ball, that you've got there, the wreath. And then you've got just one little carrot and one beet will be on their left or right. But stay tuned for some animated characters with attitude and personality and good days and bad days.
Absolutely. We all have those.
So another thing that we want to encourage too is that we want people to send us ideas. If there's something that they would like to see on this particular show, because what we're doing right now is really ramping up towards the publication of the book. But I imagine that this will just continue. We will reimagine, rethink, because there will be a second edition, the second book. We'll give you some time to breathe. But as far as, how this show will evolve. Some of the best things that we do at the Pueblo Star Journal are initially ideas that come from the community, stories to figure out, problems to solve. We're doing so much more investigative work, which we really didn't have the capacity to do that before. But there are a lot, whether it's local government, whether it's, climate, whether it's, industry, there's always something that we need to look at carefully. And so that's, as a service and deliberative newspaper, we are watchdogs in that sense.
Yes, I love it. We want to know if there is anything that you want us to hit
Right.
on
Exactly.
wellness,
Yeah.
on food, on questions, challenges,
And
let
we'll
us know.
curate that. And then I think what we're going to try to do, we've just started talking about this. We're going to eventually be weekly in the digital, but print once a month. And we've talked about having a dedicated page in the Pueblo Star Journal that reinforces or takes some of the things that we talk about and explains them or makes them easier to understand, or if it's a resource,
right?
Where is that business? What's their phone number? Who do I call? What do they have? How much does it cost? We'll do all of those things. But I think the input is really important because it really helps us understand our audiences better. And sometimes that's the greatest joy, is being able to, to find the story or find the product or, help someone connect with someone else. Because at the end of the day, our community will only be better and stronger and happier, Where'd all the kindness go? We need the kindness
We
back.
do need more kindness.
Yes. But, and then tell people about the summit. I mean, just give them a last, I don't know if you were to give anyone advice. Today is Thursday. So if you want to go to tomorrow night, which would be the opening event, the Made in Pueblo event, those tickets you'd have to go kind of tonight or tomorrow, or I don't know, at the door. But what would you recommend that people do right now if they're interested?
If you want something amazing to do this weekend, not sure what to do with your time, and you want to learn a little bit more about Pueblo, about the Pueblo Food Project, about our agriculture, about our systems, I would say you can still go. There's still tickets available, I do believe, for both days. But then they also offer different classes. Like we have a candle making class. There is a bird watching class.
So many this
year.
year.
And so there's different things. There's tipsy trivia at Walter's on Saturday night. I know there's still tickets for that.
And a lot of those are sold out.
Yes.
I saw, because some of them are limited
Some of them,
space.
Gagliano's was
Right.
doing a sausage making. That's
so
gone. That's
cool.
sold out.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, anyone that can be
And
in
so,
front of Vince doing his sausages.
I mean, he's the funniest.
He is.
And so, so I would say visit the pueblofoodproject.org. You could buy tickets. And then, we never want price to be a thing. And so there is a code that you can use as well. And that is on their page. That's on all the social medias.
And we can put that in the description for this podcast.
And so
I'll get that from you because that's important, because we want them to want to come back again next year and maybe bring friends and stuff. So if they've never been, it's a really good opportunity to see Pueblo from a different perspective. And what better way than through food?
Right.
And we've got the makers, all these little entrepreneurs that have all this. So do bring your credit card or your checkbook or your cash because you'll have an opportunity. And, there's nothing worse than when you see something that's handcrafted, you walk away and then you just regret it afterwards. We don't want that
because
to happen.
now you got to find them
exactly.
again. So tickets are still available.
Great.
And so that's what I would say.
That's great. So what's really great, too, is you're buying tickets to support local agriculture, farmers, and food producers, and everyone in between, because that's really important. And I think that's the beauty of the Pueblo Food Project is that we're actually understanding better what is exactly our food system. What is the food system? We just thought it arrived or, it was like the milkman, eggs. I mean, that doesn't even happen much anymore. But you have certain expectations. And then when you don't, it's like, well, does it even exist? And then you realize, oh my God, why didn't I know about this?
Right.
So this is a good way because food's just too important and it's fun to be happy and nourished and full.
Exactly.
So, do you want to lead out with these final thoughts here? I think they're so perfect for what we're doing and what is going to happen both this weekend and also ultimately with the tastings and then, of course, with the cookbook. But why don't you give our listeners some of these final thoughts? I think that's really special.
I think the final thought is really, food connects people to place and community. And
Yes.
that's what we've been talking about. And if that's like what my whole basis is being of service. And just really, I want to thank all the listeners for joining.
Yeah.
We love that you're here, that you're listening to us. I hope that you have a great time while you're doing it and that you're learning a little bit more about food, about the food systems, and about Pueblo and about us. And so thank you so much for joining.
We need to do something in the future. We should find out where people listen to this podcast. Are they gardening? Are they cooking? Are they driving? Are they walking on the Riverwalk? It'd be really interesting just to see. I mean, when we launched the Pueblo Star Journal, of course, as I said, all these 80 and 90-year-olds were showing up at the library waiting for us to deliver the paper because they remembered it when they were kids. I'm always curious, where are people when they get the information? Where is that sacred place for them? Because this is a listening exercise, and listening is something we need to do more of.
Yes.
Sadly, we talk too much, and there's just too much talk. And if you don't agree, there's nothing happening. So
Right.
I love the fact that, we've got an educational media tool that really is something that's fun to listen to. You want to hear the next episode. You want to learn more about what's going on. And if you don't like food, well, I don't know if we can help you, but
I'm sorry, but I think everyone likes food.
Exactly.
They just might not like
Exactly.
cooking it, and that's how we're going to change your perspective.
Exactly. Okay, so our final little note here for this particular podcast is we'll see you next month as we continue exploring the people, ideas, and stories shaping our community. This has been the Voices of Pueblo podcast. This has been a special edition of Soul Fresh, Soul Clean. And I've been with Jocelyn Martinez. My name is Gregory Howell. And we encourage you to go to the summit this weekend, learn more about the Pueblo Food Project and all of the wonderful people that make that such a vibrant organization and how they're making a difference each and every year. And it's their 5th year, which I didn't know. And that's really exciting. And I have to thank CHAFA, the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority, for their support of the Voices of Pueblo podcast. Their generous support makes this available in multiple formats. And also, we have multiple shows now, in addition to just Voices of Pueblo, which is the main brand. Now we have all these very wonderful special interest, kind of expert, just a little bit nuanced for those that are really interested in certain areas. So that's really fun. So thanks again. We hope you be safe and enjoy your day. And thanks for supporting local news in Pueblo, Colorado. Goodbye.
You've been listening to Soul Fresh, Soul Clean Episode 2. This is a production of the Voices of Pueblo podcast, presented by the Pueblo Star Journal. This episode was produced and narrated by Jocelyn Martinez and Gregory Howell. To learn more and to support nonprofit local news in Pueblo, Colorado, visit pueblostarjournal.org. If you would like to share your food story, reach out to Jocelyn at pueblostarjournal.org. We want to hear from you. Thank you for listening.
Homeownership is possible with a trusted partner.
It brings us a lot of joy to be able to say that this house is our own and that we've poured our hearts into making it our own.
Alyssa and Ryan are among the more than 155,000 people CHAFA has helped become homeowners since 1974. It starts with homebuyer education and connecting you with a statewide network of participating lenders. Get started at chfainfo.com/yourhome. CHAFA is an equal housing lender.